Hey, I'm Ryan Adamsons. Mary asked us to talk about our most specific audition memory as part of it. I'm a trumpet player. I honestly don't remember specific auditions a ton because I've always been in different scenarios. So I think it's more, I have a drum corps background. And when I think of auditions, it's always thinking of that and going through how do we go through all of those auditions? How do we sort all that information? How do we find out what we want? And so that's kind of what we wanted to talk about today is like from that side, how do we find out what we want? And then from the other side, if I'm auditioning, how do I present what I want them to know? And so that's, I think, hopefully what we're looking to show here. So.
And Rachel, you're next.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rachel Semayoa, and I teach trumpet at the University of North Texas. And I was thinking about all the auditions, mostly bad, but all learning experiences. And the biggest one initially in my as a young student was for the a band camp in the summers. I think band camps are still, I don't know if they're still a big thing nowadays, but they were when I was in high school. And I did pretty well in the audition, the prepared piece, but what really got me was the sight reading. Because I really didn't care, I just wanted to play my 3 all-state etudes and that was it. And that was a really eye-opening experience for me. And of course, I got much better after that. And I still use sight reading quite a bit because it really does show you the level of musicianships. But I had to learn the hard way.
And Dr. Tambu, you're next.
Hi, everybody. Tambu here. My earliest audition memory was, similar to what Raquel described. I remember being a freshman in high school and going to audition for the all district band. I'd only been playing tuba like 8 weeks, but my director really encouraged me to go. Hey, learn these scales and, learn these couple etudes. And I showed up and I made the band. And then that led to summer band camps and all states and college scholarships, and away we go. So I think that, I don't know, it's kind of a fun memory. I have no idea what I played and I don't remember how I played, but it was good enough to get in. And that kind of launched the last nearly 40 years of my career. So yeah, I think auditions are important. Happy to be here and to talk with you guys about our experiences.
And Tim Kaufman, you're next.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Tim Kaufman. I'm a jazz trombone teacher at DePaul University here in Chicago. I was just watching some online audition videos yesterday and actually kind of preparing for this. And one of my memories from yesteryear was auditioning for the Disney Summer Band. And just what a couple of you already mentioned, I played my prepared stuff really well, and then my sight reading was just abysmal. And I thought by this point I was now a hot shot at Indiana University School of Music, and finishing my first year of college, and I thought I could sight read fairly well, and I was mistaken. So that's a big part of auditions, and that's one thing I miss about with the virtual audition, having the student in the room with me and then handing them some stuff to sight read and see if they can sight read, chord changes and improvise, or even just ensemble parts or lead trombone parts or anything like that. So the sight reading thing I realized was a pretty big deal. And, as a professional player, that's a big part of what we do all the time is not much rehearsal time, and you have to sight read all the time. So the sight reading part is such an important part of this. So I'm interested to hear what everybody has to say today and excited to be here. Thanks for organizing this, Mary.
Thanks, Tim. And Aaron, you're up.
Did you call my name? I guess so.
I did. I released the space bar too quickly. Aaron, you're up.
Sure. Hi, I'm Aaron Tindall. Currently the principal tuba player of the Sarasota Orchestra. Live in Sarasota, Florida. I also teach at the Frost School of Music, tuba and euphonium professor there, and I also teach at the Eastern Music Festival in the summertime up in Greensboro, North Carolina. Probably one of my earliest audition moments that I can remember would be being in 9th and 10th grade. 9th grade, I think I was at the Blue Lake Festival auditioning for a placement seating with Earl Lauder. I don't know if anybody knows who Earl Lauder is, kind of a hallmark figure in the euphonium world. And then auditioning in 10th grade at the Interlochen Arts Academy. I've, of course, had many other audition experiences, being one of the last people standing at the London Symphony tuba audition and New York City Ballet, and finalist in many other big auditions, and kind of helping my own students navigate their own professional auditions and doing well at that. And I know Justin Benavidez is on here. I'm sure we'll have some tuba talk coming up about all of the many applicants. I know we get like over 50 to 60 applicants a year that we end up listening to and screening through, and trying to find the right fit for our program. So anyways, looking forward to this discussion today.
Thanks, Aaron. And Kelly, you're next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Langenberg, and I play horn. And I appreciate everyone talking about their high school audition stories. Like, I don't have any because I was too shy and intimidated to try for anything in high school. So it was much later as a horn player that I started to take auditions. But my most memorable one would have been the first one that I won. And I was still in grad school at DePaul University, and I took an audition for an orchestra, which I had prepared for quite a bit. And I did not advance at that audition, but I saw a friend who said there was another orchestra nearby that was having an audition the next weekend. So I was like, oh, I'll jump on that bandwagon. And so I only had 6 days to prepare, and showed up at that orchestra audition. It was the Quad City Symphony Orchestra, which is on the border of Illinois and Iowa, and went through 3 rounds and won. And they had me sign my contract that very day. And a month later, I was playing with the orchestra. And after that, I had a great series of auditions. And before I knew it, I had 5 positions, and each of them was for the 5 different horn parts in an orchestra. So a 4th horn job, 3rd, 2nd, principal, and even an assistant horn job. So that's kind of unusual, but I'm looking forward to talking more about auditions, but I definitely think that there's just a little bit of it that's luck, and I know we'll get into that.
Very true, Kelly. Stephen, you're up.
Hi, I'm Stephen Wick. I teach at the Royal Academy of Music and also at a special high school for music called Purcell School here in London. So I see auditions from both angles. I'm often preparing students for auditions for music college and university these days. And I think a very important element of it is just the preparation, being really well prepared. I always say to them at auditions, you just got to go in and do your best, because you don't really know what they're looking for. And I think this applies to professional jobs as well. If they've had a tuba player in an orchestra who's consistently played far too loud for the last 10 years, if somebody goes in there and plays really loud, they're probably going to say, oh, no, we've had enough of that. And that's why somebody plays a little bit more mellow and fits in a little bit better. So you're never quite sure what's going through their minds. And one of the other variables is, of course, you never know who else is going to show up on the day. You might be one of 3 people, and you might shine out of those 3. Or you might be in a group of 20 with sort of 19 other really good players. So there's never a guarantee about these things. So I just say to my students, just go and do your best. And certainly when they're applying to music college, we have, a lot of good music colleges, apply to 4 or 5, because if you do 5 auditions, the chances are 1 will probably, you'll get out of the wrong side of the bed, you won't be feeling on top form, your bus is late, and you go in and it doesn't go well. So it's good to have the backup of the other 4. So that's my certainly recent experience with auditions.
Thank you, Stephen. I've got Chris O'Hara up next.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, my name is Chris O'Hara. I teach trumpet at Elmhurst University. I think my most memorable audition experience was my placement at my freshman year at Boston Conservatory. I remember vividly sitting outside the audition room, listening to the person in front of me, who, to my young ears, I thought he was the most amazing trumpet player that I've ever heard. And then he came out and said something probably not good to say on this talk, and walked away not very happy with himself. And then I went in terrified and did not do very well. So one of my most memorable experiences taught me a little bit about the psychology of auditions. And I think has been kind of said, remember that we always get so down on ourselves, but we do this because it's fun. Everyone here makes music because we enjoy it and we love this. And if you go into any performance, and auditions are just a performance, with that in mind, I think you'll do well. So
Thanks, Chris. And Justin, you're next.
Hi everyone, I'm Justin Benavidez. I play tuba in the Tallahassee Symphony, and I teach here at Florida State University, and I also teach in the summer at a Round Top Music Festival in Texas. Yeah, it's a real privilege to be a part of such a panel of esteemed colleagues. You know, most of my experience with auditions these days are with incoming students that apply to my program, dozens of students each year. But, you know, when I think about my experience with auditions personally, I realize that what comes to mind is most often the failures rather than the successes. And you know, one of the things that I learned along the way was that success comes a little bit more to a person when they stop approaching auditions as an exam, and more as a complete experience to present the work that you've done ahead of the audition and to learn something from that experience. And you know, a vivid memory that comes to mind is taking an audition for a symphony orchestra with my good friend Aaron several years ago, and getting cut early, and driving back across the country because, you know, as a young buck trying to save every dollar to take every audition that you can, driving back through a snowstorm until 4 a.m. To get home. And, you know, just the camaraderie of having friendship and trying to learn, talk about the experience with each other. And, you know, I think that oftentimes students especially look at these auditions as it was a success or a failure. And if it was a failure, then I've got to change everything. But there are things to learn even from your failures. So that's I think it's an important perspective for students.
Thanks, Justin. Jeffrey, you're up next.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Yay. Okay, cool. So, hey, I'm Jeffrey Miller, trombone player from New Orleans, but I live in New York. I just graduated from Juilliard in May with my master's, and I did undergrad there as well, so I got my bachelor's from there too. So I can hopefully speak accurately about that experience. And in high school, I definitely auditioned for a considerable amount of you know, high school music programs like Skidmore Jazz Institute, Vail Jazz Workshop, Disney College Band, Grammy Band, and a bunch of other stuff. So definitely have a bunch of stories, but, you know, excited to talk about, you know, definitely the psychology behind auditioning, like was previously said. I think, you know, one thing I will say is I feel like even if you're extremely confident in yourself, and you don't think you're going to be nervous, I feel like when push comes to shove, there'll probably be a little bit of nerves there, just because you don't know what they're looking for necessarily. You know, like Kelly said, you know, there may be a little bit of luck involved, you know, in the process and the outcome. So, you know, there's probably going to be a little nerves there, but I feel like, you know, I'm excited to talk about how to overcome that, and how to, you know, end up just giving your best. So, pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you, Jeffrey. Thanks. And let's go on to John.
Hey everybody, my name is John Michael Bradford. I'm a trumpet player from New Orleans, Louisiana, currently living here right now. And I grew up with Jeff, and we can speak on a lot of things together as well. But we did a lot of the same programs: Grammy Band, Skidmore, Vale, Auditions, and I think we had a lot of mentors. So we had a lot of help going into the auditions, and sometimes I kind of want to speak on something differently from everyone else because we're kind of overlapping a little bit, but like maybe someone said this earlier, but like kind of like having the confidence, but not being overly confident. Because sometimes when you get, like, we were blessed with, me and Jeff both, we got into most of the things we auditioned for, and we, you know, there wasn't many times when it was like, you're not getting this. So like after a while, as a kid, you grow up, you start kind of being like, okay, I got this, like this is easy. But then you get into some auditions and it's like, it's nothing like you expected and or experienced previously before. And I can speak to one of my auditions, my Juilliard audition. I decided to go to Berklee College of Music, but I had a choice between going to Juilliard or Berklee. And the Berklee one was super relaxed, and it was in my hometown. They came here. So it was like, I just felt like it was easy. Like they came to my school, everything I had prepared. I was like, this is my moment. Like I had everything down. I was ready. And in there, I was like, so like, kind of like just doing everything I could. And they were like, man, relax, you're good. You got it. It's cool. So they kind of helped calm me down. But I think I was so nervous because I had to do my Juilliard audition as well, but I had to fly to New York. So I was traveling. It was like there was like a snowstorm. It was crazy. And with Juilliard audition, there was 2 rounds. And I didn't know that. So I get there and I'm thinking, I had my prepared etude, had my songs, I read everything. Like I did this and I felt like it's all good. I'm gonna get in. I see every, and they're still there. And I'm like, what's going on? They're like, no, you gotta come back to see if you even got to the next audition. So I'm like, oh my God. I was a nervous wreck. Cause like I said, the Berklee one was relaxed. I wasn't like in a suit or anything. I looked nice, but I wasn't, you know, super dressed up. When I went to Juilliard, I was like, had my suit and tie. I was like, you know, I was putting on my Wynton Marsalis hat. I was like, let me come in here and look as professional as I can, and, you know, and impress these guys. And they brought us, so you get on the elevator and you go all the way down. And I was like, okay, this is like the test. This is like the ultimate test. And I get in the room and it's like 20 judges, a band, it's dark. And Wynton and I had been in communication about this because he was talking to me about coming to school, and he said, yeah, I'll be there. It's all good. So I get there and then there's a camera and they're like, Wynton's in Africa with the orchestra, they can't come. So they're going to video you and he's going to watch it. So I'm like, oh my God. I was like, this is crazy. So go through the whole process again, ear training, play my tunes, you know, they're analyzing everything I'm doing. And then they're like, all right, we're going to have you read something else. And I'm like, oh my God, I thought I did the reading already. And it was something that went and wrote specifically for the audition. So I think Mr. Kaufman was saying, you know, being prepared with the sight reading, it's like, you can read through some stuff and it's cool, but when you get in there, it was like, I had no idea what it was going to be. So it was weird. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking about, my point is you could be prepared for anything, because it was just, it kind of blindsided me. And I felt afterwards, I was like, oh, it is what it is. But you can get into situations and really like have to be on your A game with whatever they may bring you. But I'm excited to be here with you all. Thank y'all.
Thanks, John. That sounded terrifying. Some of the pictures have been jumping around, but I think Matt Hartnett, I think you are our last artist to introduce yourself. So introduce yourself.
Hey guys, my name is Matthew Hartnett. I'm trombonist. Mostly probably known from the Lauryn Hill gig, the Dave Chappelle gig, and many other artists. My audition perspective is going to mostly be about just being yourself, because there are going to be a million people maybe playing the same tune. Guys may have all the same audition piece or whatever the case is, but being authentic to who you are is going to take you far. Because like many people have said, you never know what someone's going to look for, right? So why not be yourself? Why not, right? You're going to have a different interpretation of a piece that maybe someone else may not have. In my early audition years, that was always my thing. You know, I'm like, I've always gotten the part because of how I interpreted something, or how I put a rubato here, or I got with the accompanist and was like, hey, let's do like a little bit of this right here. You know, it was just always something a little bit different that always showcased who I was. And I was always able to shine through the music in the classical world, which is already written for you. You know, I was always able to shine through that in the jazz world. I just implemented the same kind of thing. So that's my audition perspective. Good to be with y'all today.
Thanks, Matt. For those of you who are just coming in, my name is Mary Galimi. I work with Denis Wick North America. I'm also a trumpet player, and my most memorable audition experience was for my grad school audition. By that point, I had auditioned for Interlochen Arts Academy. I went there for high school. I had auditioned for colleges. I had auditioned for summer programs. So maybe there was an element of going in there a little cocky. I don't know. But I got into the audition, and my trumpet teacher, who I had idolized for a long time, I'd taken some lessons with, so he wasn't, I wasn't going into meeting someone for the first times. But he and one of the ensemble directors were not seeing eye to eye and got in an argument that lasted like 5 or 7 minutes. And I just stood there and watched, and I didn't know what to do. So that might have thrown my confidence. But I think even walking in there, for some reason, something about that room and something about that situation just threw my nerves into a tizzy. And I did not play well. I felt like I had just embarrassed myself, and all the teachers who taught before me, like, had gotten me ready for that point. It was a horrible feeling. But yeah, you just never know what you're walking into. And even if it's what you were expecting, like I expected to see my teacher, and it wasn't much different from what I expected, but sometimes your nerves just get the better of you, and you learn from that. So I'm sure we'll talk about nerves a little bit too. But I wanted to run a poll, but I think I have to upgrade my account to run polls. So we will do a verbal poll to our attendees here, and you can answer in the chat section. We are going to be talking about educational auditions, like college, school, grad school. It could be, maybe you're in high school and you've got seating auditions or some type of solo audition. And we can also talk, we have questions concerning career auditions, but I'm curious from our audience here if we have more people interested in education or career. So maybe just send back in the chat whether you're interested in education or career, and we'll know which way to start tilting the conversation. However, for now, let's start just for the moment on educational auditions, with getting into schools and the preparation for that. A lot of you are teachers and are going through the auditioning process right now, listening to tapes and getting reference letters. And either from your own experience or from what you're seeing from the people auditioning, what are signs of good preparation, or what is good preparation for your upcoming audition?
I can start if that's cool. I think that good preparation, at least, obviously in my perspective, is, you don't want to have to think too much, if at all. I feel like you should just, obviously it's different depending on the type of audition, but I feel like just a standard kind of, I want to get this part kind of audition or this gig would just be you want to be able to just play and express yourself, and not have to think too much about it technically. I'm just going to leave it there. I mean, I think, you want to just be able to leave it all, in the audition room and say that you've given your best. And I feel like that's done through, obviously putting the time in, and I feel like it comes down to spending the time thinking and practicing and working on the muscle memory of it all, you know, in the practice room, so that by the time you get to the audition room, you know, you don't have to do that much thinking, like I said, if at all. Just let your playing speak for itself, and your vibe, your energy, your personality, like Matthew was saying earlier.
If I could jump in, I do have to say that I have a PDF of my tips for grad school. It's just a one page. I can share it in the chat if you'd like. But in 2021, I'm going to talk about that, which is all pretty much virtual auditions. And I'm not sure what the future holds, but I would say invest in a good microphone. It doesn't have to be super expensive. Maybe practice with it, like if you're doing a Zoom. See what your levels are. Do not ever face right at the microphone 45 degrees. Make sure your background looks professional, and even though you're on Zoom, still dress professionally and be prepared to speak. And those are just some just initial things that have really made an impression. We get bias. We get these unconscious biases just from the first impression that we get. And when I see somebody that's well-groomed, has their levels great, and of course their playing has to be at a high level as well, they're gonna stick out in my mind, and especially for maybe consideration for scholarship. So I think it just, the way you present yourself says a lot, especially now in this world we're living in, which is very much Zoom centrified. But I'll go ahead and share that PDF.
Rachel, and to all the teachers here who are accepting auditions right now, are you doing is it just a performance recording that you're asking your students, or is there a verbal point where you're having them verbally answer some questions as well?
Oh yeah, we definitely it's a Zoom. We go through something called Accepted, and they have an audition room, and then it opens up a Zoom. And I guess the talking is super important for us as well. I mean, I think it just really shows their character, their personality, you know, how they might fare in our particular studios and university. And sometimes it's a way for us to let them kind of get their nerves out a little bit, you know, just a little bit of chit chat. We just like to do that, especially if we see someone that's very agitated and nervous, you know, just asking a little bit helps. But yeah, it's performing and speaking.
One thing, just talking about preparation, is prepare yourself for what the audition is going to be. So if you're recording, record yourself throughout the process. Don't let the first time you record be the time you're recording to send in. Or if it's going to be over Zoom, do a mock audition with your friends or with a teacher over Zoom. Don't let the first time you do it be the time that counts. So.
At the university where Dr. Boo and I teach, we are accepting auditions this year either as a recording or as a live audition. So students have the option to submit a recording and then they do a 10-minute interview with us, or they can do a 25-minute audition where they play for 10 minutes and then we talk for 10 minutes. So students have the option to do whichever one they prefer, but we always do a bit of talking, just like Rachel was saying, just to calm everybody down, make sure that the mic levels are set appropriately, and to get to know the student a little bit and give them an opportunity to say a few things before we begin. And just to provide a little bit of an example about how we use that time, we had a student, we watched her video before we met with her in person, and we read her recommendation letters, and just glowing, above a 4.0 GPA, like everything about her was really wonderful, except for the high notes on her audition tape. And, you know, I just thought that could use a little bit of explanation. And so when we met with her, I asked her just to describe her day on the day that she recorded, so we could get a feel for what was maybe going on there. Had she tried to record the video several times before that, which it turned out that was what happened. But it gives us a little opportunity to get to know a little bit more and maybe fill in some of those blanks or to answer some of the questions that we have as a panel listening to the audition.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. That's right on. I really appreciate the perspective from Raquel and Kelly both. I serve as the director of bands at Northern Illinois University. So I get called in, like we like to have a team of faculty members on every audition, just so it's, a little more balanced perspective. So I get called in on all kind of auditions. And I think Raquel's right on. Your ability, a student's ability to speak to the audition panel and just to talk about, hey, here are my goals and here's what I'm looking for. Here's why I selected, this piece, and here's why I think your school might be a good fit. And that gives us a whole perspective on your professionalism, your preparation, that sort of thing. If you're coming to any university, you should absolutely know the primary faculty member that you'd be studying with and know at least some highlights of their career. Ideally, several people mentioned you've already had a lesson with that person, either virtually or in person. I guess what I'm saying is a little bit of homework on the part of the auditionee goes a long way to making a positive impression on the committee. And don't get me wrong, you have to play well, right? Like it all starts with your playing. But we're going to hear lots of people that play well. We're looking for, as several people said, the right fit, So your ability to speak, as Raquel said, your ability to present yourself in a professional manner, all those things are factors, whether it's live or Zoom or whatever. So those are my thoughts.
Hey, I didn't realize that what I was actually about to say, which is what Tom said, in the professional world would actually apply on the collegiate level as well as far as auditioning and stuff. I was going to say, studying the organization or the section that you're auditioning for is super, super important because auditions might be held because the second chair trumpet player or trombone player has to go somewhere and they need someone to fill that spot. So if you don't know how that spot is supposed to be filled, you won't really know how to audition. So it's just like being prepared, like really just doing your research and figuring out what the section sound is. If the section sound is big, or is the section usually more mellow, or do they need that third trombone part to be really meaty, or do they need you to be a little more subtle? Is there more soloing involved? Like stuff like that. So yeah, like Tom, you hit it right on the head, covering all the lanes.
I'll say, I think Tom mentioned this also. Make sure you take a lesson with the teacher if you can beforehand, because I think one of the things that a lot of people miss is that while you're auditioning to get into the program, you also have to be auditioning the program to see if the program is a good fit for you. You want to make sure that the person that you're going to be spending probably not an insignificant amount of money to work with is someone that you really do want to work with and will work well with.
Just chime in here a second.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
No. Were you going to speak there, Jen? Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was just gonna agree with him and say, yeah, like when I went to Berkeley, I was dead set on it because I got to meet Sean Jones and he was the head of the department, and I knew that we got along well and I was going to get a lot out of it. Sometimes people ask me, how do you know where to go to school? It's like everyone's been saying it, do the homework, like study who you're going to be with, check out their records, check out who they play with, make sure that kind of fits what you want to get out of it. And if you can get a lesson before, yeah, I agree. That's a really good thing to do if you can get a lesson beforehand.
Yeah, all really great stuff that's been said so far. I'll mention, various schools have audition list for a reason. We're looking for, trying to whittle down what is going to be the best fit in our program. On any given year, I might have anywhere from 1 to 3 or 4 openings. And I get students all the time that ask, well, can I play this, or can I play this, or can I play something different? Or they'll just show up and play something completely different than what the audition list is. And I like to structure it in a way that I'm going to hear their big tuba playing and hear their low register, hear some articulation, hear their their musical phrasing, and their ideas and stuff like that. And try to not, if there are any people that are listening or that you are auditioning, try to follow what the professors are asking to hear, because it's there for a reason, and do your homework on it, and bring your own interpretation to it. It's the only way that we can really evaluate a candidate versus another candidate, and I like to use the word fairly. It's to your advantage, actually, and I think, to piggyback onto what some of the other colleagues here are saying, have a lesson with people and see if their pedagogy really lines up with your ability to comprehend what it is that they're talking about. Otherwise, it could be a really miserable 4 years for you, or 2 years, or 3 years for you, depending on your degree program. It's a two-way street. I want to walk in every week and have a lesson with a student who's really eager to learn in the way that I present information to them, right? And when we have lessons with prospective students, we're not necessarily looking for the student that's going to impress us the most, but somebody who's going to be really real with the issues that they have in their playing. And the type of student that I find is the best is the one that comes to you with their problems. So if you're struggling with something in your playing and you happen to get a one-off lesson with somebody, just say, hey, I have a really difficult time with flexibility in my mid-register. I've got this shift I can't deal with, or I can't articulate, or, because those are likely the problems that are keeping you from becoming a professional player. And if you can't get on the same wavelength with this professor or this teacher, you're likely to not fix those issues over the time that you would spend with that person. So, totally try to find a time with that professor if you can, and see if you click. And if you don't, there's no shame in admitting that it's not going to be a good fit. So,
I completely agree with that. I got the thought. Kind of wanted to explore a potential and solution or answer to the question, what if you don't really know what you're looking for in, a college or a program or whatever? Like, you don't know, some people, apply to Juilliard knowing that they want to attend a conservatory, right? They want to, strictly go, they strictly want to land an orchestra job, or they strictly want to, play with, play with Wynton Marsalis or whoever. They have in their mind what they want to do, and also what kind of program they're looking for, right? But then, what if you don't necessarily know what kind of program you're looking for, or what you want to do with your music, right? I feel like in that case, keep your options open. A conservatory might not be the move if you're not sure what career path you want to take, right? I feel like something like Berkeley could probably help, because they have the whole production thing. Actually, it was between Juilliard and Berkeley for me, just like John. So, I definitely could relate. Had Sean Jones been there, I graduated high school a year before John Michael. So, and Sean Jones joined the program the year after I graduated. So, had he been there by the time I graduated high school, I probably would have wound up at Berkeley too. But I feel like, Berkeley is one of those places where, if you want to end up getting into production or something like that, you have more of an opportunity to explore that kind of thing. Whereas if you went somewhere like Juilliard, it's a pretty focused program. They're slowly getting better at expanding different career options, but generally, it's still pretty performance based and performance driven. But places like Berkeley, and even just non-conservatories and universities, even, you may find that you're super passionate about something non-music related that you want to incorporate into your music. You might end up minoring in history or psychology, or something just non-music related. So I feel like if you're not really sure what you're looking for in a program or a university specifically, I guess those examples we're referring to, you know, keep your options open and don't be afraid to don't feel that pressure to necessarily apply for a conservatory or anything like that. You know, definitely keep your options open.
Yeah, the best thing I ever did was take time off after undergrad. And it was only a year, but I just didn't give myself, I'm going to go do this. I literally just went, taught lessons, did some stuff, and then it sorted itself out. And if you had told me what I would end up doing, I would have laughed at you, you know. And I ended up going to DePaul for my master's. I didn't know DePaul was a college at the time that I got out of undergrad. So it took the research, it took the time for that to happen. And again, same thing about finding the right people. I went to all the schools. I was just a fly on the wall in rehearsal. They didn't even know I was there. So I got to see what it was actually like. And some of the schools that I thought I would love it, I was like, no, wouldn't have been there. You know, and then also like I appreciated the honesty from teachers because I asked, you know, there was one school where I went, you know, and like I hit it off and they were really cool. And they're like, man, they're like, you can be really honest. We'd love to have you, but you're a terrible fit here. Just like, you know, your personality and how this fits are like, if you want to come, great. But this is not who you are, I don't think. And I absolutely appreciate the honesty because in retrospect, they're totally right. Whereas my audition for DePaul, I walked into the office, I happened to notice, I was like, oh, Duluth East High School? My dad went there. And it was Tom Matta, and he and I ended up talking for 15 minutes about Duluth, Minnesota before we ever got to the music, and then spent the time after the audition hanging out at a coffee shop, people watching and talking about where to live. And it was a done deal by that point. But again, never would have known if I didn't take the time. So
there are a lot of
Sorry, I was going to jump in kind of on that that idea of kind of the conservatory versus university. Having done both, you know, work at a university and a conservatory. I did my conservatory first, and I really think that was the wrong choice. I very much recommend for students, especially doing undergrad, look to universities. There's a lot of things that conservatories do extremely well. One of the things that they tend to not do so well is the whole other side of academic life, and learning how to write, still being able to like figure out math so that you can do your taxes, being able to take a business class. Like these are really important things. I'm sure all of us will say that like having a little bit of business knowledge for what we do is extremely important. And you might not find that at conservatory. Conservatories are great for specializing, but a university I think is probably a really smart way to get started.
I was just going to throw out there, the size of the program also is a huge thing. I mean, we've covered finding the right teacher for yourself and learning what type of teaching style you're going to work best with and what type of studio, you know, what type of city you want to be in. Do you want to be in a city and start growing roots? Do you want to be in a smaller town? Or, you know, everybody has their own way of learning. And then also there's so many different types of programs out there, especially for grad school. There's ones where you become a teacher for the undergrads and it's a small program and you might not have a teacher at that school, but they've paid your way through your program. And you can take a lesson, they'll pay you to take lessons with anybody that you want. So it's very open-ended. Or you might want something where it's a little bit more competitive and, you know, you have a very strong group of competitors around you in your studio as a grad school student. And then that's another thing to think about for undergrad. You know, do you want to go to a school where you are competing for spots and ensembles with grad students because they have a grad degree program at the school? Or do you want to go to a school that doesn't have any grad program and you might have a little more playing opportunity? Or, you know, that there's pros and cons to either. So there's each.
Yeah, if I could layer in on that. You know, again, I teach at a university and was trained at universities. And in my case, I did a combination, right? The kind of mid-sized school and then a really big school at Arizona State. What I would tell students, and I saw in the chat, somebody asked about graduate school. It's kind of what we're saying, find the right fit, look for the right fit, do your research, do your homework, find out about, certainly at a minimum, the person you'd be studying with, but also the program as a whole. And as Mary was saying, you know, is it graduate driven? Is it undergraduate driven? What's the focus? And actually, I'm going to have to apologize and step out. I have another commitment coming right up. But how about this? Trust the process, right? Like when you're the one behind the instrument auditioning, you worry, you know, as people have said, like, you don't really know what they're looking for. You play what you think is the right stuff, but you don't really know. On the other side of the table, like when you're the audition panel, it's actually really obvious to us most of the time who's the right fit musically, who's the right fit personally, who's got the right temperament to be in this place that, you know, we've built. So I that's going to be my closing thought and my farewell thought is trust the process, right? Like Ryan was saying, if you go to an audition and they say no, that's okay. Not a big deal. Just take the next one, keep looking around. Conversely, if you go someplace and audition, they say yes, well, now you have a choice to make, right? Now you have a choice. But either way, you're going to find the right fit. You're going to find your way. Trust the process. And, you know, as we said, it's all about the music and getting better, growing as a person, growing as a musician. Somewhere it's out there. All right, I got to roll. Thank you, guys. Best of luck with the panel.
Dr. T.
Yeah.
If I can jump in, got me thinking about conservatory as opposed to state schools. You know, I teach at a university, and I've been teaching at universities my whole career, and the largest majority of our student population is usually music education. And I know this is somewhat affiliated with TMEA, so we have a lot of future music educators potentially. One thing I always tell my students is do not go into debt for your undergrad. I think there's a lot to say about universities. They're affordable. Sometimes you can live at home and still attend. And we've been talking a lot about the teachers, but the ensembles are a huge component as well, that you might want to check that side of it out as well. If you're going to, whatever your major is, I mean, if it is music education, I would certainly take a look at the ensembles, the marching band, the requirements, their student placements. Sometimes there's 100% job placements for music eds at certain schools, and it's a strong program. So those are just some other considerations that I wanted to touch on.
I 100% agree with Rachel. Incidentally, I just kind of looking through the PDF that she posted. If you are even remotely involved in this process, check it out. There's some really great advice on that. And the music educator thing, yeah, find out some of the music educators that have graduated from that school. See if they have good programs. See if they're actually doing well doing that job, because then you might also.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like reaching out to alumni was a big reason I chose to go where I go, because I had a lot of friends and mentors and people I looked up to and played with that went to Berkeley, and I was like, okay, this feels right. And yeah, that PDF is great as well. But I just wanted to say, yeah, it's really important. I agree with Chris to know what people experience at the school that you want to go to, whether it's a conservatory or a university, and see where they are in their life and how that connection can help you moving forward as well.
I briefly wanted to say, yeah, all really good stuff. I was thinking about the human, keeping the human aspect in auditions, especially if you're auditioning for programs that are, you know, teaching based, like you're auditioning for a school or you're auditioning for, you know, a workshop where you're learning from, you know, experienced musicians that are teaching you. You want to communicate. You want it to be obvious that you're able to be taught and that you're open to taking information. You don't want to, you know, obviously you want to be confident that you're, you know, that you know, want to be in, you know, you feel like you should be in the program, right? You need that confidence, but also you need to just make it clear, make it obvious that you are somebody who, you know, you're not just doing this audition as an ego boost, right? You want to make sure that the people listening to your audition and checking you out see that you're flexible and that you're able to be taught, and that you would be a good student to have in the program. I just think that's really important, that you're a good human being underneath it all.
I remember in my grad school audition, my teacher saying, well, musically, you make it, we would love to have you. But he was saying, you don't get in just because you play a great trumpet. You get in because you're a good human being. And he counted that just as much as what we did with our instruments, because he didn't want to have a studio that was going to be problematic and not get along and not be supportive of each other. And, sure enough, years after Kelly and I left DePaul, his ability to control who was coming in and out of the studio was kind of minimized, and some bad actors wound up in the studio, which created a lot of issues, and he ended up leaving the school. So, great teachers will want to work with great human beings. And I think if you hear a lot of drama in a section that might, or in a school, if you get to know some of the players at the school, and it's known for its drama, that might be also something you want to stay away from, because do you want to be a part of that too? I mean, that's another area I think you could probably do your own homework at.
Yeah, that's a big reason why that's a pretty big reason why there's often an interview portion of an audition, so they can get a feel for your vibe and your humanity.
Especially since it's 20. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mary. Go ahead.
I wanted to move on to the recording process, because for 2021, I'm sure there's a lot of people who have had to either do their first recording audition or, recorded auditions have been kind of standard for orchestral auditions for a while now. It's not like we're new to it now, but any specific advice? And I know Ryan Adamson's has had a lot of experience with recording, so I'll let him start this off. But then also for the teachers that are on this panel, if you're seeing recording do's and don'ts, I know Rachel earlier said don't play straight at the microphone, but in terms of room setup, lighting, what setup is gonna best represent what you're able to do?
Yeah, a lot of it's already been mentioned, kind of the obvious things. A better microphone is going to help you, but that doesn't have to be expensive. There's actually a company out there called Neat, N-E-A-T, that's making like a $40 condenser microphone that plugs straight in. You don't need to spend, for sure, less than $200 will get you something that's professional. So don't sweat that, but it is worth the money to get something good. The other part of that, again, like I already said, record throughout the process. Don't let the first thing that you're doing be the one that counts where you're trying to troubleshoot it. Record the very first time you're practicing it, which sounds awful because you're like, I don't want to hear that. First of all, it's going to help you get better. Second of all, you're finding out how you sound before you have to send it in, so you can, try out all those different things, get your level set, do all those things. Things like space, right now I'm in my living room. It's a bigger room and it has a hardwood floor. So that's an okay space if I want to have a little bit of reverb, but if I didn't and I wanted to be deader and more representative for an audition, I would go in my office. It has a carpet and it's a smaller room and has stuff on the walls. So just being aware of your space and doing that can have an effect. I'll put something in the chat. I have a couple things I've written up before that have like generic advice on that. The other thing is there's so many guides out there now. Be careful of the rabbit hole, because you can lose, weeks trying to sift through it, but there's all kinds of resources. If you be specific to what your equipment is, but look up, okay, this is my phone, this is my computer, this is my microphone, this is my instrument. If you look that up, someone has tried to do it by now, and they'll help you out. So I think those are probably the biggest starting points, I would say. The other thing is be honest. I know it's kind of dumb, to have to bring up, but a lot of people recording, you're thinking almost like a studio musician to say like, well, the point is to sound as good as I possibly can. No, the point is to present yourself accurately to the people who are listening to you, right? The panel doesn't want you to sound better than you are. They want you to sound how you sound, so they know how they're going to interact with you and how you're going to work on your issues. And that's not to say just put in a crappy recording and hope for the best, but it's like, don't splice together 14 takes to try and make it this weird Frankenstein amalgam of your playing. Play how you play, practice if you sound bad, and the rest will take care of itself. So.
Just to speak to any of the students out there who may be auditioning for stuff that you never really did before, or maybe stuff that you kind of like trying something new or whatever, right? Just like my man Ryan just said, man, record as much as you possibly can. Record your practice sessions, and that's like it's like being face to face with a true mirror. You know, it's not a pleasant thing when you suck and you're trying to, like, oh man, you heard yourself in your inner ear suck, and then you're gonna play it back and hear what you really sound like on the other side of the horn back. It's not fun, but it's something that you have to do, and it's a practice that will make you a lot better, a lot better. Myself, I was a classical guy going into college. I didn't even know anything about being a professional musician or jazz. I knew nothing. So thank God for Texas Southern University for teaching me, you know, all about that. But I didn't know anything, and I didn't really realize that, you know, the things about my sound that I thought were good that were not really that great when translating over into the jazz world, whatever. So just like, you know, practice that and listen to yourself over and over and over, and then, you know, compare that to maybe what you want to sound like, or find somebody that you want to sound like. And that's really the only way to get over the recording jitters, because I still to this day I prefer to play live than recording. I'm not the recording studio guy. That's not my forte, even though I have recordings, you know. So that's it.
I just want to put a plug out there really quickly. Chris, I'll get to you in a second. We just had this conversation actually on recording a webinar a couple weeks ago on recording and video recording tips. And Quinn Carson, who was talking about the audio side of it, he just finished producing a show on Netflix with Michelle Obama and handling all the sound and writing and music recording for that. So he's got a lot of experience. But one of the biggest things he said is, make sure you have a good sound. And, you know, your first try at recording, you'll hear what your sound is like. And it's a really good question. Are you playing on the right equipment? So, you know, for him, when he switched to, that was one of the big things he was wrestling with when he was switching over, when he found Denis Wick Products, is that he was recording for a show called Drunk History. He was recording all the trombone parts for it. And I think he was, I don't think he was writing the horn line. No, I think he was writing the horn lines and recording them. But he really had to work on, you know, what's going to be the best sound for a wide variety of ranges and styles. And so that's, you know, that's what led him to Denis Wick and changing equipment. So I wouldn't suggest changing equipment right before an audition, but, you know, as you're preparing, you're usually preparing about a year out, or thinking about it at least, for a college audition. You know, what sound are you going for? Isn't the best sound you're making? And, you know, see if your equipment is supporting that. I'll throw it over to Chris.
I have to actually get off and get to my next thing here too. So I wanted to say, kind of along those recording ideas, the recording all the time is great, because a lot of people get nervous when they hit the record button. And if you're practicing with your recorder on all the time, then it's normal. And then that makes life a lot easier. On the whole, like, yeah, don't splice a bunch of stuff together. The thing to also remember that, you know, if you're one of those people who's like, oh, I recorded, I can do this, and they'll never know. Everyone here has recorded something, probably a lot, and they know, they can hear when there's something that's edited, and like there's nothing good that will come of that. But yeah, I mean, and then what Mary said, and this will be the last thing before I head out, is sound, time, and intonation. If you can show those things, you have a great sound, you know how to play, you can play in time, and you can play in tune with yourself, like then the world is yours. So, all right, I gotta head out. So thanks a lot. This has been great. Thanks, guys.
Preaching.
Yeah, the last thing I remembered, I forgot to say in the thing, was listen to your recordings, like all of them. Because a lot of people will record and then they'll play back to make sure it worked, but they didn't actually listen. And there's stuff that if you actually listen like the audition person, or listen to them with your teacher, you know, go through it so that what you send in is like the 10th final revised draft, not the first draft that no one else has seen. So
Yeah, get another set of ears on the audition material. Play your audition material for, you know, other, you know, your peers, your teachers. Just get a bunch of feedback on your sound, and, you know, how you sound on the material and everything like that. And, you know, obviously get to it as early as you can, so that you have enough time to make those adjustments.
I think too, you know, you want to have a realistic presentation of who you are and how well you play at this point of your life. But if you have options on the audition list, don't pick stuff that you can't really play that well. If you have other things to play, you know, as a jazz trombone audition, I'll have a series of tunes on there you can pick, And then sometimes I don't put a tempo on there on purpose just to see what the student is coming up with. If you're playing I Got Rhythm Changes and it's too fast and it sounds sloppy and bad, maybe that's not what you should do. Go a little bit slower, pick something that's going to work, pick the ballad you like to play that you're going to sound good on. And gosh, I was just watching these audition video recordings yesterday. Don't blow off the classical part of it, because we still need you to function in concert band for a year or two. And don't have your Rochu etude sound, not very good, or your Koprosh etude not sound very good, when your jazz part sounds really good. And then I have a series of scales you play, and you play half the scales with a bunch of wrong notes. Like, what are you doing? That was the blow off. Oh, I got to do these scales. Scale number 1. Da-da-da-da-da-da. No, that's not a diminished scale, half step first. You just made up your own scale. It's the Jeffrey Miller scale. No offense, Jeffrey. Or whatever. You end up
Sounds good to me.
No, not you.
Sounds good to me.
Yo, Jeff, you probably do have your own scale, bro.
You're in full ride.
No, yeah, I mean, I agree too. Because the classical stuff.
Sorry, go
ahead.
Sorry.
Not
at all.
No, I was saying I agree with you. The classical stuff that informs the sound, the intonation, and all the elements we're talking about of being a great player. Like when I was with Sean, most of the stuff we did, he wasn't worried about my language or what I was playing, or I had so much experience, so he obviously instilled those things in me. But we mainly focused on my weaknesses. When a lot of classical etudes, he wanted me to get into C trumpet, he wanted me to get into piccolo, he wanted me to have that experience that he had, and that's ultimately why I chose him, because I knew he could strengthen any weaknesses I had. So yes, the classical stuff and the reading and all that is very important for the auditions as well.
Yeah, a lot of times classical sounds like a style. I'm like, no, classical is just how we learned how to play the horn, and is the conservatory method. The style is the second thing.
I literally,
that's why we do Clark's.
My first 3 years at Juilliard, I studied with Steve Teray, undergrad, and we literally worked on scales for 3 years. And I'm still working on scales. You know what I mean? So that's just an example right there. You know what I mean? I completely agree.
Tim, I think you're absolutely right when you say that a student should choose the right pieces to play if it's a free choice, because it's so important they play to their strengths. And I think quite often people feel they have to do something really hard just to show off their technique, and it's not always the best choice. Doing a simpler piece but showing off the lyrical playing or whatever can be much more effective in terms of the audition.
Absolutely.
Stephen, since you are a lone European influence here, are there differences that you see between, like, when you have American students coming to audition for a spot in one of the schools that you teach at or your colleagues teach at? Are there differences that you think that they should be aware of in terms of how they audition or how they present themselves, in terms of how students would audition in other countries versus America?
I think if an American student came over to the UK to audition, I think they would do well. The few differences in sound, so many brass players in this country have come through either brass bands or the Salvation Army, so we're very informed by that kind of very rich blending sound you get in that kind of band. But no, I think the same things would apply to students wherever they're from. I do tend to make slightly different allowances for students depending on their age, because I'm listening to students audition for the Royal Academy, for music school, and by that time they need a pretty solid technique. We're not going to take anybody with a shaky technique or shaky musicianship, for instance. But the age of, sometimes when they come to the Purcell School at the age of 14 or 15, what we're looking for is raw talent, really. Technical things, I can help them with. But if they don't have the basic musical ingredients of a good ear and a good sense of time. You don't have so much to work with there. So we're looking for that, raw, undeveloped talent.
Well, we focused a lot on educational auditions, which is what everybody responded with, wanting to know more about. One of the questions we did get from one of our attendees, Cameron, before we started the webinar was, I thought a really important one to ask, because if you are going to school to become a musician, you probably are going to run into this just as you're leaving school. You're auditioning for a job, like Kelly was saying, your first orchestral job or, something. And you take one and you take another and you take another, and it usually takes a while. There's very few people who just win their first audition. So how many auditions is too many auditions? Like, how many auditions should you be focusing during the year? Do you just take as many as you can and hopefully win one? Or do you have a set strategy for how many auditions you're going to allow yourself for the year? And Kelly, I'll throw that out to you to start.
Well, classical orchestra horn jobs are 4 different positions. So you have basically 4 different sets of repertoire that you're working with. So I would counterbalance that by saying you don't get to pick and choose which orchestras announce auditions at which time. So you kind of have to be ready to go, I think, all the time. But I do think you can kind of get into like an audition runway a little bit, in that you can kind of build off. Even if you didn't win, you can still have a successful audition and build off of those skills. And so I think there's something to be said for having like a season of auditions, but I wouldn't wear myself so thin by just taking every audition that was available. Maybe you focus on like low horn for this season and recognize there's only one winner, and if there's even one winner coming from an audition, and that this is an experience that helps you sharpen your skills. And I think you'll be less frustrated with the experience if you kind of go into it recognizing there's an opportunity for you to grow as a musician. So I would say be a little picky about the auditions that you take, but also recognize that you don't always get to choose when the auditions are available to take. But I would definitely, as a horn player, maybe focus on low horn or focus on high horn for a season at a time.
Well, I'll jump in and say for tuba, we don't really have that luxury, right? We don't have that many auditions that come up, so we just take them when they come. But actually right now, we're in a really cool period. There's 3 military band openings for tuba, and I have students that are taking those auditions. And, we talk about like, well, how are you going to organize your time so that you can submit all these tapes or potentially plan to take those live auditions? And I think a lot of it really is preparation, organization. If you take a look at recent audition lists, there's always a lot of overlap, and there is a standard repertoire that is that excerpts are chosen from. So I tell my students, even my undergrads now that are interested in pursuing professional performance, what's stopping you from preparing those now? You may not be ready to get accepted to that live audition round or to actually travel and take that cattle call audition, but you can prepare now. So I think as long as it's part of the early mentality for students, obviously fundamentals need to be in place before they go jumping into the deep end with some of the advanced repertoire, but I think organization, preparation, and jumping into the deep end as soon as you can.
I want to offer a different perspective on this. Not as far as looking at auditioning for college bands or like proper orchestra bands or something like that, but in the world that I function in, like freelance horn section kind of world, you're always auditioning. Every time you step out and you're on stage, either at a jam session or you're just doing a gig, local gig, big gig, you're always auditioning, because that's just how our world works. Someone will hear you and they'll be like, oh man, you might be good for this, or they'll hear you playing and they're like, okay man, let's see, can you play this, whatever, maybe be good for this gig. So in my world, at least, you're always on stage, you're always auditioning. Every time you put your horn to your face. So
for anyone that's looking to take the horn section route, pop band, wedding band, whatever career path that is, just understand that every time you play, you're auditioning. And in that case, to what Mary was saying, audition as often as you can. And everything that you play, make sure is absolutely meaningful. And you plan it like, it's your last audition, because it could be, And so I just kind of wanted to throw that out there, give a perspective change or whatever to anybody that may be looking to go into more of what like I do versus like, the symphony orchestra proper setting or something like that. So audition a lot, play as much as you can in front of as many people as you can. Only if you're ready though. Don't go out there if you're still trying to get it together.
Yeah, if there's attendees here who are more on the commercial side of things, or jazz or horn section, do go to our YouTube Denis Wick USA channel. There's a playlist called Denis Wick Artist Webinars, and we just went through a series of webinars of the New York scene, the LA scene, the Nashville scene, which had a lot more work than I realized was there, but it's like a 90-minute webinar, an hour webinar devoted to discussing what that audition process is, how you get in the scene, how you get to know the people, and each city is a little different. So it's not like, yes, the standard is you play and people will decide if what you sound like and what you're useful for. But how you get into that scene is a little different in each city. So that's a huge opportunity for you guys. That's on the YouTube page and Denis Wick USA, and look for the Denis Wick Artist Webinars playlist.
Yeah, kind of across the genres, I think the answer is really just play as much as you can sound good. If you sound good and you present yourself well, regardless, it's going to work out. Like when I was an undergrad, I wasn't the number one call guy for any gig, but I was the number two call guy for every gig. And so that was kind of the thing. I made a living because it was like, orchestra, great. Brass quintet, sure. Salsa, yeah, you got it. And it was like, and I would just show up and play my best. And, it's like when you're starting, you got to get better at it and do it. But if you show up, if you're on time, if you do it and you prove yourself at those things, it just makes you more versatile and better at those things, but it also makes you better at performing. And that was part of what Matt's saying. If you show up and you play with meaning and you show that you want to get better at what's going on, people will call you again, and you'll get better at that next thing. And then when the gig you really, really want comes up, then you're more ready for it regardless. So.
Yeah, your audition definitely starts before you play. They definitely look at you before you even play a note. So, for sure.
Hey, Mary, there was a question that was asked that I wanted to answer. I'm not sure. Are we still able to do that or not?
Was it the one on preparation there?
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it, Matt. That'd be great.
Okay, because it kind of fits into what we're talking about right now. So the question was something about when did, I guess, paraphrasing, the preparation, I guess the most prolific moment where preparation met, the circumstance of being in like an audition. So for me, we're talking about auditioning and playing and stuff like that. My personal goal was always to just really be in the dope horn section, to lead the horn section for this artist, that artist, and like write these horn arrangements. That was my thing. That's what I always wanted to do. So I just buried myself in that world. I made my career from New York. So I just did that. I dabbled in the jazz scene here and there, but I mostly just did the horn section stuff, which is more on the commercial side of things. And so just doing that as often as I possibly could. I mean, for I'd say 10 years, just studying, horn arrangers, horn arrangements, sections and sounds and stuff like that. When I met the actual, what I guess would call the culminating moment, when I had it was an audition, but not really an official audition. When Lauryn Hill she was trying to explore the idea of bringing a horn section into the band, and my man Igmar had already got us the first gig, and they were like, hey, she kind of wants to maybe take you guys on the road. She wants to see what you guys are going to be like for the actual show. So we had no music prior. I was there. I was the only one actually out of my horn section that could show up. So I had to bring in two other guys to sub for this audition. And I'm sitting like 5 feet away from Lauryn Hill, and she's looking at me like, all right, what you got? And I'm looking like, I don't have any of this music, but it's okay because I'm not going to say that right now. I'm just going to play whatever happens, right? So the band starts playing this show that they've played 1,000,000 times over. They're playing the show, and I'm literally having to make the horn parts up in the moment, right there where it's happening. So I'm getting with my guys who are coming up with stuff, and she's listening, not saying that. Every once in a while she would stop and be like, hey, how about you try to do this? Can you invert that like this? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So we in the moment doing everything. About 12 songs later, rehearsal is over. I've pretty much created horn parts for her entire show. And it was done. And I was like, okay. So the next day I get the call, hey, you guys got your passports, she's going to take you out. And I was like, whoa, that was crazy. That was one of the rare times I'm like, okay, I'm gonna pat myself on the back because, you killed that, and what happened to get into that point of being able to kill that was sitting in jam session after jam session, hosting jam sessions, being a part of jam sessions, just going out to play, getting my guys being like, hey, trumpet player homie, hey, saxophone homie, let's go crash somebody's set and let's just go make some stuff up. And I did that so much. That muscle was just worked out and tuned up, ready to go. So as far as like being prepared for an audition, whatever you're actually auditioning for, like sharpen that muscle as much as you can. Because in the moment I was nerved up, but like Jeffrey was talking about with muscle memory, like it was like the muscle memory was already there. So I was able to just go for it and do it. And we got it. So that was that was me answering that question as far as being prepared, meeting the opportunity.
Yeah, there's a specific word that's come up a ton recently when I'm working with people, and it's enough. You're like, well, how much is enough? Like, enough is when it's ready. It's like when the audition is old news, when you can walk in front of Lauryn Hill and make everything up and be the best person for the gig, then it was enough. Until then, it's not. So it's pretty much repetition until then, and everything we talk about is the same things we're going to be saying for whatever gig it is. But it's being okay with enough. You'll know when it's enough, and you'll probably know after the fact. So just keep doing it.
This is all unbelievably great advice. I am so blessed to have so many great artists to like have so much insight into all of this. We need to start pointing towards closing up. One of the things I did want to talk about is when you don't get the win, so success isn't obvious, how do you gauge the success in what you just accomplished in your audition or whatever? And maybe this is just one quick point that's most meaningful to you, but we'll go through each of you on how you gauge your own success when the win isn't obvious. And Ryan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like the obvious success is for an audition that you got the job. But for me, it's like go into it with your own wider target. Go into it with a goal so that no matter what the outcome is, you have success for you. So for instance, let's say I'm auditioning for an orchestral job. First of all, I probably shouldn't. But if I am, the point is I want to get better at the orchestral rep. I want to sound better at my horn, and I want to get some experience. Well, great. Well, if I do those things, I literally can't not succeed. It makes me more relaxed when I'm performing. I'm going to probably play better, and I'm going to get something more out of it. So it's go into it with a wider definition of success that has obvious things you can achieve no matter what someone else does. And then you'll probably come out better. So.
Thanks, Ryan. How about you, Tim?
Yeah, always do a realistic assessment after the gig or after the audition of what happened, what did you learn, what do you need to work on, and as Matt was pointing out, auditions aren't necessarily a formalized situation where you're being called, one at a time to come audition for some orchestral position, auditioning, when you do any kind of gig, you're auditioning all the time. So always try to have a realistic assessment of what happened, what your strengths were, what your weaknesses were, and maybe who played better than you on the gig and why and what's going on. And always try to learn. When I was first doing just gigs in Chicago 30 years ago, I used to have a pencil and a piece of paper in my pocket, and I would write stuff down, especially learning tunes. Like you start learning whether it's a Motown tune or a jazz tune, like certain bands would fake certain tunes, and it's like, man, I never heard this tune. I better learn this tune. And this was before the internet was like a thing, so then you had to actually do a lot more research trying to find information out. So I'd write down the name of the tune. Man, can you recommend a recording this is from? Yeah, check this recording out. Okay, thank you, cool. And I'd come home with a list of stuff that I would shed, to be ready. And then as I subbed in each band, they would all have their own little repertoire, and I would try to write down and then, remember if I subbed again a few months later, like what tunes did that band do? Oh yeah, I better review these before the gig tonight or this week coming up. So always, as Ryan was sort of just saying, just make it into a positive thing and do a realistic assessment of what was happening during the gig, what worked, what didn't work, what you did well, what you need to work on. And that's forever. We're students forever.
Thanks, Tim. How about you, Aaron?
Yeah, sorry, my dog is trying to make an appearance here. Get back. I think I speak for all of us when I say that we've all failed at more things than we've been successful at, and every time that I've failed, I've always, what I think has been a good job of taking notes of, what went right, in my preparation that I felt went right in my preparation, what perhaps went wrong in my preparation, what I could have controlled better, because at the end of the day, you can only control, the things that you're responsible for. You can control, how you've eaten the night before. Sometimes, how you've gotten sleep the night before, what you've been eating or drinking, weeks and months leading up until that point, the amount of sleep that you've gotten. Some travel things are out of control. Obviously, if you're doing a recorded audition, you can control the room that you're going to be in, the microphone that you want to use, your warm-up time. All of those things, they all add up, right? There's small percentages that add up. But if you're not successful, then you need to, of course, analyze why you were not successful or get some kind of feedback. I'm always encouraging my students, if you didn't win or if you got second or third place, you need to get feedback from somebody as to why it didn't happen for you. Sometimes, I've been in the finals numerous times, and I firmly believe sometimes it's just the committee wanted vanilla ice cream that day, and I happen to be chocolate or strawberry or just a different flavor than what they'd wanted. Stephen Wick alluded to if they've had a loud tuba player for 10 years, maybe they don't want somebody that plays quite that loud. You never know. But the one thing that you can control is your preparation and how you prepare and how you show up on the day of the audition. Things that you cannot control are what they think or what they want to hear, or what they perceive, or the candidate before or after you. Those things you shouldn't even waste an ounce of energy on certain elements like that. If you're not getting out of the first round in your auditions, or you're not making it past pre-screening tapes, one or two, then okay, maybe it's just not what they want to hear. If it's more than that, I think that you really need to analyze your preparation and how you got to that place, and you need to take a step back and look at things in a more objective way. So, yeah. But best of luck to everybody in their preparations moving forward with auditions, and I know this was helpful to myself just to hear what everybody had to say today. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Aaron. I think what really strikes me about what Aaron is talking is it's an assessment. And so much we look at success and failure as a very emotional thing. But I think in a lot of things in our playing, the more we can pull the emotion out of it when we're trying to get better, and then add the emotion in for the actual performance, there's a very empowering point you get to where you can remove the emotion and analyze and decide what needs to happen next, and then move forward, and then wait for your next performance to save all that emotional energy for the performance and not for the aftermath of it. So anyway, Kelly, you're next.
Just super quick. I just wrote down, you got better through the process, so consider that your success. And there's only one winner, so everyone else lost. And it gives you an opportunity to just refocus in on the skills that you want to improve. So look at it as just an opportunity to continue developing your own skills.
Thanks, Kelly. I see a raised hand over by Matt Hartnett.
Yeah, one of my favorite books is The Lean Startup. It's pretty much a book about business and tech worlds, startup companies and stuff like that. But one of the things that you embrace in the process of doing a lean startup is you embrace failure. Failure is an opportunity to grow and to learn. So I know the music world sometimes can be unforgiving. You know, when you fail or you go in and you don't sound great, people will think that you just are not a great sounding musician. However, when you show up to the next gig or the next audition room and you're in the room with those same people that you saw before and you sound amazing, people are going to be super impressed, and that's going to even speak more to the type of musician that you are. So when you in an audition room with 20 trombone players and you have to play in front of everyone, and you don't sound great, 6 months later, there's another audition and you show up into the room and you see 10 of those same guys that you saw before. They already have you prejudged. And then when you sound amazing, they're going to be like, oh, man, and that's going to speak volumes about who you are and the potential of how great you can actually be. So embrace the failures and look at them as opportunities to learn, and, improve on those things that you can learn on, and you'll be fantastic.
Thanks, Matt. That's great. And the title of that book, if you want to throw it up in the chat, if there's any attendees who are interested in checking it out. Stephen, let's move on to you.
Yeah, I think Tim summed it up very well. You have to have a very realistic assessment of how you've done. And I think every audition should be a learning experience. But moreover, actually every gig is a learning experience. Every time you get the instrument out of the case, it's a learning experience. And I've never met a musician yet who's 100% satisfied with what they do. They're always looking to improve some aspect of their playing. So yeah, that's just our life. And if you don't win the audition, just think it over and prepare well for the next one.
Thanks, Stephen. Justin, how about you?
Yeah, so, when I think about what defines success or failure in an audition, for me, it's always been about, did I represent myself to the best of my abilities? Did I represent my preparation? And, the outcome is not within my control. So, if it didn't work out in my favor, then I'll go back and I'll evaluate my process. But, I really love what Matthew and what Tim and what Stephen have already said about the audition is an opportunity, if it doesn't go your way, to embrace failure, to be a lifelong learner. And, it's a snapshot in time. And I tell my students, whether you win the gig or not, I hope the next day you'll pull out your instrument and practice and get better. And if you approach it that way, like it's this lifelong path, then you're going to be a better musician and maybe even a better human being for it.
Definitely. Thanks, Justin. Jeffrey.
Hey, that's me. So I wanted to say really quick, I feel like it's important to just be grateful for the opportunity to even audition for something, because I feel like people or judges who get to hear you may hear, potential or something in you that you don't hear in yourself at that moment. And, they may keep you in the back of their mind, and then by the time they hear you next time, they'll hear the growth in you. They'll be like, oh, maybe he, she, or they might be a good fit for this thing that I have going on. You never know what's going to come out of even just being in the audition room or auditioning for people. because oftentimes people who are, these judges, these audition judges or audition panelists have, capabilities and means by which to put you in situations that could greatly benefit you career-wise or performance-wise or whatever. So just being grateful that you even just have the opportunity to audition. Um, uh, yeah, just because I just wanted to give an example because just looking, definitely reflecting on what you could have done better, if it doesn't work out, and things to consider for next time because oftentimes you can audition more than once for these kinds of things. For most things, for example, my uh, first time auditioning for um, well, I'll say real quick. Sometimes they tell you what you can do wrong or what you can do better next time. Other times they won't tell you at all. It'll just be like, okay, sorry, we decided to go another way. Then that doesn't. It's like, okay, what does that even mean? And other times they'll just be really upfront with you and be direct with you about what you could have done better, and give that feedback. Case in point, when I auditioned for Grammy Band, I auditioned twice. I auditioned my junior year in high school and my senior year. I did not get it my junior year. I was really upset because admittedly I was a little cocky just because I was just confident in my playing, and I just feel like I was, you know, I don't know, I was just, dumb high school kid. But um, and I didn't get it, and I was really upset. And then I really took the time to think about it, and by the time I auditioned next year, I ended up getting it, right? And then, but they didn't tell you, when they rejected me my junior year, they didn't tell me why. They didn't give any feedback or anything like that. Um, and that's okay. That allowed me to do some self reflection on myself. But then, when I auditioned for the Disney All American College Band, I auditioned uh, in 20 summer of 20, or I auditioned in 2015 for the 2015 band, and um, I had known I knew the main, I guess, sort of band director um, through Grammy Band because he was over the Grammy choir at the time, and so I knew him from that. But so I guess I kind of just assumed that I was a little overconfident, and I kind of assumed that I had it in the bag. So I actually showed up in just a hoodie. Sorry, I showed up in a hoodie, and just in some sneakers and some joggers, and just didn't take it seriously at all. It's like, okay, I got this. They know I can play, all that kind of stuff. And I ended up not getting it my first time auditioning for the band because he, the guy pulled me aside and was like, you would have, you played well, of course, you did your thing, but you showed up here with, in a hoodie and some sneakers. It's not that, I didn't take it as seriously as I should have. Um, and so, that's a case where he actually pulled me aside and actually told me some things that I can consider for when I audition the next time. Right. So it's kind of those things where, you're not always going to have that, person to pull you aside and literally tell you what you can do better next time. And if you do, great, but also take that into consideration and also do reflecting if you do get that. But in general, just make sure you're reflecting on, you know, being grateful for the process and also, reflecting on what you can do better next time if it doesn't work out.
Thanks, Jeffrey. And last but not least, we've got John.
Hey y'all. Everyone said amazing things that I agree with. Um, I had a similar situation like Jeff. I mean, I didn't dress the same way he did, but I didn't get into Grammy Band either the very first time I auditioned. And I think I spoke on this earlier. Up until that point, I had gotten into pretty much everything I had auditioned to. So I had the confidence to where I felt like I'll get it. I put in the work. I'm trying to be as humble as I can, and I'm trying to, present myself in the best way. But you don't know. I never found. They never told me. I never asked. I just was like, dang. So that pushed me work harder for the next time and just to try to play my best. And I think it's a little bit, but like for me, I like to record myself at gigs on my phone, like voice memo. I mean, even when I'm in my studio at home, I'm listening over to the takes and making sure, okay, this line was cool. This always trying to perfect anything I can. Even like I said, on a gig, if I felt like, you know, I wasn't playing a song a certain way I wanted to, or if I wasn't playing the changes how I wanted to, how can I reflect on that and say, okay, let me go back and kind of see what I can do to fix those things. But at the end of the day, sometimes you don't know. You might not be the right fit, as everyone was kind of speaking on. So I think it's best to approach this like when we first get our instruments. If you know, a lot of people start out young. You love it. Don't get down on yourself. Don't feel like if you didn't get something that you're just terrible and that this is all for nothing, because we can kind of get in our own heads and feel like, at least for me, it's like trumpet's a very difficult instrument, and when you don't sound good, sometimes you're like, dang, I put all this time in and I still can't do this. One of the things that Sean Jones really helped me with dealing with a lot of this stress is like approach it like a child. Approach the trumpet like it's a child. Like you love it, you see it. Kids, when they have a problem, they don't care. They just go on to the next thing, you know. Kind of get out of your head and try to have that mindset going into the audition. Don't try going into it just with the open mind, just being yourself. I think Matt, that was one of the first things he was saying, like just be you, be yourself, go in there, be cool, and do your best. You know, if you don't get it, I don't think it's the end of the world. And you know, it just wasn't that opportunity, just wasn't meant for you. And other things will come along if you consistently put in the work. And like Matt was saying, like he presented himself. He was able to do the horn lines because that's what he wanted to do. He became a leader. I think that's an important trait in an audition, like for people to see that you are a leader. You're not just there on the sidelines. Like, no, you step up to the plate, you give, you know, your best at whatever you're trying to do, and that could land you the job. And just being a good person, building relationships and connections with people, because that could be for a lifetime. Like when I met Jeff, like we've known each other this whole time and we've done so many things together. That's just a friendship that continues to build. And through him, through other people you meet, you build your network of people. And that's just by not only being a great musician, but being a good person and staying true to who you are. So I think everyone said great things. I don't know if I've added anything, but I appreciate everyone's I think you're muted.
Muted.
Man,
Space bar.
Apparently I get it. I was saying nice Trumpet Mafia shirt, John, and thank you.
Hey.
Well, thanks everybody for all the input. Some of our panelists had to go along the way. We went a little longer than we expected, but man, this was such great information. I couldn't cut it short. So if some of your friends couldn't make it, we will be airing this on or putting this on our YouTube channel the next day or two, and I'll share that with you. For those of you who sent questions in ahead of here for a free mouthpiece or being entered to win, Cameron Randall's and our winner. So Cameron, I'll be reaching out to you for the mouthpiece. And I think Jeffrey just threw something in the chat to all of you as well. If you have more questions for this group of artists, join Team Denis Wick. It's our Facebook group, so you can continue the conversation there. Tomorrow we actually have a live product discussion time about finding your next mouthpiece. So if you're looking for another mouthpiece, if you're not sure how to look for one, if you're really afraid of it, because there can be a lot of scary things that go along with trying to find a new mouthpiece. Tomorrow's gonna be great. Stephen Wick's gonna be back on, and some of the panelists you see here will be there tomorrow. But that starts at 12 p.m. CST. And then on Monday we have one more webinar called the Comeback Kit, and it's just about brass players who have recovered from sickness, from physical injury, from COVID, a lot of things that just completely throw a wrecking ball into your playing, and then you have to rebuild both mentally and physically after that. So, and how do you do that? So that should be very interesting too. So hopefully you can come to one of those. Visit our booth.danzer.com is one way you can find the events that I just talked about, or go to our Facebook Denis Wick Facebook page, go to our events section. All the events are posted there as well. or you can reach out to me, Mary Golimi. That's who you got the email from that brought you to this webinar. So thanks again for joining us, everyone, and hopefully we'll see you at a future webinar. Bye-bye.
Download the app.
And download the Denis Wick app. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
You win the
was me.
prize.
That was me.
Oh, Jeffrey, sorry.
Yeah.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.